It started the week before exams. Every morning, just after the sun peeked over the rooftops, a golden dog sat outside the school gate. Not on the sidewalk, not in the street. Right there beside the front post, like he belonged there. He didn't bark, didn't chase bikes, didn't beg. He just waited. Some kids laughed. Others ignored him. But 12-year-old Aya noticed something different. He was always in the exact same spot, and always alone. The first time she really saw him, it was raining. She'd forgotten her umbrella and was already soaked by the time she reached the front steps. That's when she spotted him again. The same golden fur, now darkened with water. He didn't move. Didn't shake off the rain. Just sat. She hesitated, then walked over, holding her notebook above his head like a tiny shield. "You're gonna catch a cold," she whispered. The dog blinked, but didn't move. That was the first time she spoke to him. The next morning, he was there again, still silent, still watching the school doors. Ay approached slowly. This time, she brought a small piece of bread in her pocket. "Hey, you hungry?" She held it out, palm open. The dog didn't take it. She set it on the ground and stepped back. Minutes passed. A few students walked by, glancing curiously. Then, finally, he leaned down and gently took the bread. No growl. No rush. Just a slow, careful bite. Aya smiled. "Good boy." At lunch, she told her friend May. "He's always there," Aya said. "He doesn't even move," May shrugged. "Probably looking for food." "I don't think that's it. He's waiting for something." "Like what?" Aya thought for a second. "Someone." The teachers began to notice, too. During recess, Aya overheard Mr. Shino talking to the math teacher. "That stray's been there since last semester. You think it's dangerous?" "No, just odd. Doesn't even bark." Aya wanted to speak up, to say the dog was gentle, patient, kind. But the words stuck in her throat. She didn't want them to send him away. Later that week, Aya brought a boiled egg wrapped in napkin. She crouched by the gate and gently placed it on the ground. "You don't have to eat it now," she whispered. "I'll be back after class." He looked at her but didn't move. She stood, adjusted her bag, and walked inside. When the bell rang and the gates reopened, the egg was gone. But the dog was still there. Some students started calling him Lucky. Others said he was a ghost dog. "I bet he follows one kid every day," a boy said. "No way. I saw him just sitting there." Aya stayed quiet, watching from the classroom window. The golden dog stayed, calm as ever, even as the world rushed around him. One afternoon, Aya stayed behind to help clean the art room. When she finally stepped outside, most of the kids had already gone. But the dog was still there. Just as she reached the gate, he stood up. Not to bark, not to run. He walked slowly to the far end of the street, paused, and looked back once. Then disappeared around the corner. Aya whispered, "Where do you go?" The next day, she waited earlier than usual. This time, with a small rice ball wrapped in plastic. As she reached the gate, he was already there. Sitting. Waiting. Aya crouched beside him. "I don't know your story," she said, "but I'm going to figure it out." He didn't respond, but he didn't turn away either. She placed the rice ball down, then gently reached toward his fur. He let her. His ears twitched slightly, but didn't pull away. "Why do you come here?" she asked. No answer, but something passed between them. A silence that wasn't empty, a silence that held weight. That night, Aya sat at dinner, poking her noodles. Her mother noticed. "Everything okay? Have you ever seen a dog wait for someone?" Aya asked. Her mom blinked. "Like guarding?" "No, like waiting. Every day. Same place. Same time." Her mother paused, thinking. "I've heard of that. Sometimes animals don't forget, even when people do." Aya looked down. Would you call animal control? Why? There's a dog outside my school. Her mom shook her head. Not unless he's dangerous. He's not. Then let him. Wait. And so Aya did that day after day. The golden dog always at the gate. Never barking. Never leaving early. Always waiting. And in her heart, Aya started waiting too, for the day he would tell her, in his own quiet way, what, or who, he was waiting. For that day, YA started packing extra food. Not much, just a slice of bread, half an egg, or a few pieces of chicken wrapped in napkin. She'd slip it into her pocket every morning before school, pretending it was for herself, but at WSN single quotes to it was for him. The golden dog was always there first, sitting still by the school gate, head low, ears alert. He never moved when the students passed, never barked, just watched. Aya made sure no one saw. She waited until the crowd thinned, then crouched quietly and placed the food near the wall. You don't have to eat it now, she whispered. I'll be inside. He looked at her, just for a second. His eyes didn't shine like most dogs. They were deep, heavy, like he was remembering something that still hurt. Aya stood up and walked inside, her chest tight for reasons she couldn't explain. By lunch, the food was always gone. It happened again and again. Each day the same. She never saw him eat, but it was always gone. One afternoon, her homeroom teacher, Miss Rico, noticed. Why do you keep looking outside, Aya? Aya froze. No reason. Miss Rico followed her gaze. That stray dog again. Nodded slowly. He's been hanging around too long, the teacher said. You shouldn't feed strays. They can be dangerous. He's not, Aya replied softly. He's quiet. Even quiet dogs bite when they're scared. Aya looked away. That day, she didn't leave food. And when she passed him, she didn't stop, but she still looked. His eyes followed her. Not in anger. In silence. She tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on her math homework, her friends, her chores. But all she could see was that face. Those eyes. They weren't begging. They weren't wild. They were waiting. The next morning, she packed the rice cracker in her pocket and walked faster than usual. She placed it down gently, her hand shaking. I didn't forget you, she whispered. I was just scared. Not of you. Just scared they'll make you go. The dog didn't blink, didn't move, but something softened in his stare. At lunch, May leaned over her desk. You like that dog or something? Aya blinked. I don't know. I think he's waiting for someone. Like who? I wish I knew. After school, Aya lingered longer by the gate. The dog didn't get up, but when she turned to go, she heard something behind her. Soft pause. She turned. He was standing now, 3 steps behind her. Not barking, not running. Just following. She froze. Then she whispered, You want me to see where you go? He blinked once. Then turned around. Walked down the sidewalk. Stop. Looked back. Waiting. That night, Aya sat on her bed, clutching her knees. Her mom peeked in. You okay, sweetie? Aya nodded. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do dogs remember people, even if it's been a long time? Her mom sat beside her. Some do, the really loyal ones. They never forget. Aya whispered, even if the person never comes back? Her mother didn't speak for a while. Then she placed a hand on Aya's back. Sometimes they wait anyway. The next morning, Aya packed 2 rice crackers. One for him. And one just in case he followed her. Again. It started the week before exams. Every morning, just after the sun peeked over the rooftops, a golden dog sat outside the school gate. Not on the sidewalk, not in the street. Right there beside the front post, like he belonged there. He didn't bark, didn't chase bikes, didn't beg. He just waited. Some kids laughed. Others ignored him. But 12-year-old Aya noticed something different. He was always in the exact same spot, and always alone. The first time she really saw him, it was raining. She'd forgotten her umbrella and was already soaked by the time she reached the front steps. That's when she spotted him again. The same golden fur, now darkened with water. He didn't move. Didn't shake off the rain. Just sat dot. She hesitated, then walked over, holding her notebook above his head like a tiny shield. "You're gonna catch a cold," she whispered. The dog blinked, but didn't move. That was the first time she spoke to him. The next morning, he was there again, still silent, still watching the school doors. Why approached slowly. This time, she brought a small piece of bread in her pocket. "Hey, you hungry?" She held it out, palm open. The dog didn't take it. She set it on the ground and stepped back. Minutes passed. A few students walked by, glancing curiously. Then, finally, he leaned down and gently took the bread. No growl. No rush. Just a slow, careful bite. Aya smiled. "Good boy." At lunch, she told her friend May. "He's always there," Aya said. "He doesn't even move," May shrugged. "Probably looking for food." "I don't think that's it. He's waiting for something." "Like what?" Aya thought for a second. "Someone." The teachers began to notice, too. During recess, Aya overheard Mr. Shino talking to the math teacher. "That stray's been there since last semester. You think it's dangerous?" "No, just odd. Doesn't even bark." Aya wanted to speak up, to say the dog was gentle, patient, kind, but the words stuck in her throat. She didn't want them to send him away. Later that week, Aya brought a boiled egg wrapped in napkin. She crouched by the gate and gently placed it on the ground. "You don't have to eat it now," she whispered. "I'll be back after class." He looked at her but didn't move. She stood, adjusted her bag, and walked inside. When the bell rang and the gates reopened, the egg was gone. But the dog was still there. Some students started calling him Lucky. Others said he was a ghost dog. "I bet he follows one kid every day," a boy said. "No way. I saw him just sitting there." Aya stayed quiet, watching from the classroom window. The golden dog stayed, calm as ever, even as the world rushed around him. One afternoon, Aya stayed behind to help clean the art room. When she finally stepped outside, most of the kids had already gone. But the dog was still there. Just as she reached the gate, he stood up. Not to bark, not to run. He walked slowly to the far end of the street, paused, and looked back once. Then disappeared around the corner. Aya whispered, "Where do you go?" The next day, she waited earlier than usual. This time, with a small rice ball wrapped in plastic. As she reached the gate, he was already there. Sitting. Waiting. Aya crouched beside him. "I don't know your story," she said, "but I'm going to figure it out." He didn't respond, but he didn't turn away either. She placed the rice ball down, then gently reached toward his fur. He let her. His ears twitched slightly, but didn't pull away. "Why do you come here?" she asked. No answer, but something passed between them. A silence that wasn't empty, a silence that held weight. That night, Aya sat at dinner, poking her noodles. Her mother noticed. "Everything okay? Have you ever seen a dog wait for someone?" Aya asked. Her mom blinked. "Like guarding?" "No, like waiting. Every day, same place, same time." Her mother paused, thinking. "I've heard of that. Sometimes animals don't forget, even when people do." Aya looked down. "Would you call animal control?" "Why?" "There's a dog outside my school." Her mom shook her head. "Not unless he's dangerous." "He's not." "Then let him." "Wait." And so Aya did. Day after day. The golden dog always at the gate, never barking, never leaving early. Always waiting. And in her heart, Aya started waiting too, for the day he would tell her, in his own quiet way, what, or who, he was waiting. For that day, YA started packing extra food. Not much, just a slice of bread, half an egg, or a few pieces of chicken wrapped in napkin. She'd slip it into her pocket every morning before school, pretending it was for herself, but at WS and single quotes to it was for him. The golden dog was always there first, sitting still by the school gate, head low, ears alert. He never moved when the students passed, never barked, just watched Why and made sure no one saw. She waited until the crowd thinned, then crouched quietly and placed the food near the wall. "You don't have to eat it now," she whispered. "I'll be inside." He looked at her, just for a second. His eyes didn't shine like most dogs. They were deep, heavy, like he was remembering something that still hurt. Why stood up and walked inside, her chest tight for reasons she couldn't explain. By lunch, the food was always gone. It happened again and again. Each day the same. She never saw him eat, but it was always gone. One afternoon, her homeroom teacher, Miss Rico, noticed. "Why do you keep looking outside, Aya?" Aya froze. No reason. Miss Rico followed her gaze. "That stray dog again." Nodded slowly. "He's been hanging around too long," the teacher said. "You shouldn't feed strays. They can be dangerous." "He's not," Aya replied softly. "He's quiet. Even quiet dogs bite when they're scared." Aya looked away. That day, she didn't leave food. And when she passed him, she didn't stop, but she still looked. His eyes followed her. Not in anger. In silence. She tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on her math homework, her friends, her chores. But all she could see was that face. Those eyes. They weren't begging. They weren't wild. They were waiting. The next morning, she packed the rice cracker in her pocket and walked faster than usual. She placed it down gently, her hand shaking. "I didn't forget you," she whispered. "I was just scared. Not of you. Just scared they'll make you go." The dog didn't blink, didn't move, but something soft in his stare. At lunch, May leaned over her desk. "You like that dog or something?" Aya blinked. "I don't know. I think he's waiting for someone." "Like who?" "I wish I knew." After school, Aya lingered longer by the gate. The dog didn't get up, but when she turned to go, she heard something behind her. Soft pause. She turned. He was standing now, 3 steps behind her. Not barking, not running. Just following. She froze. Then she whispered, "You want me to see where you go?" He blinked once. Then turned around. Walked down the sidewalk. Stop. Look back. Waiting. That night, Aya sat on her bed, clutching her knees. Her mom peeked in. "You okay, sweetie?" Aya nodded. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do dogs remember people, even if it's been a long time?" Her mom sat beside her. "Some do, the really loyal ones. They never forget." Aya whispered, "Even if the person never comes back?" Her mother didn't speak for a while. Then she placed a hand on Aya's back. "Sometimes they wait anyway." The next morning, Aya packed 2 rice crackers. One for him. And one just in case he followed her. Again. Aya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. They said someone from animal control would come tomorrow. Maybe even sooner. She had to know where he went, where he belonged. At midnight, she got up quietly, slipped on her sneakers, grabbed a flashlight. The house creaked, but her mother didn't stir. She slipped out the back door and into the dark. The town was silent, the kind of quiet that made every step sound louder. Her hands trembled, not from cold, but fear. What if she lost him? She reached the school fence and crouched low behind the bushes. He was still there, the golden dog, sitting alone, head low, watching the empty courtyard. For a long time, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he stood Aya followed. He limped slightly, like age or pain lived in his legs. He walked past the school, down the side road, and toward the old playground behind the gym. A stayed in the shadows, heart heavy. He didn't look back, didn't seem to notice her at all. Finally, he stopped Dot in front of an old bench. He sniffed. Once turned in a slow circle and lay down. Aya crept closer. Then she saw it, the wooden sign behind the bench. Faded paint. A crack through the middle. It read, "Welcome, kindergartners." She covered her mouth. He wasn't guarding the school. He was waiting here, waiting where someone used to sit. She watched as he rested his head on the ground, curled tight beside the empty bench. Not for comfort, for memory. Aya whispered, "Is this where you lost them?" The dog didn't move, didn't blink, didn't need to. She stepped forward, sat on the cold ground beside him. "I think you're waiting for someone who never came back." He let out a long, quiet breath. Aya gently reached over and touched his fur. "I'm sorry," she said. "No one should have to wait alone." They stayed there, girl and dog, under the broken sign, under the weight of something no one else could see. A love that didn't leave. A goodbye that never got to happen. Aya arrived earlier than usual. Her legs ached from last night's secret walk, but her heart was heavier than her limbs. She turned the corner toward the school gate and froze. A white truck stood there. Large, quiet. Lettering on the side read, "Municipal Animal Services." Two men leaned against it, sipping coffee, waiting. One wore gloves. The other had a metal catchpole slung over his shoulder. Aya's stomach dropped. A teacher walked by and whispered, "It's time we dealt with the mutt." Aya ran. She darted through the gate, eyes sweeping every inch of the sidewalk, the bushes, the trees. The dog was gone. Panic surged. She ran up to the truck, breath short. "You can't take him." The man with the gloves looked down. "Little girl, the school asked us to come. The dog's been loitering for months. He's not hurting anyone. He growled at a student. He didn't bite him." Aya shouted. The other man joined in, voice tired. "Look, kid, we don't hurt animals. We just bring them in, give them a warm place, food, and if no one claims them." He didn't finish. Aya's throat tightened. In the teacher's lounge. The staff muttered. One teacher said, "It's for the best. It's not safe." Another added, "The girls." Two attached. Aya stood in the doorway, fists clenched. "You don't even know him," she said. They didn't look up. By recess, the truck was still there. Doors open. The pole resting against the tire. The men waited, but the dog never came. Aya checked behind. The gym, behind the trees. Even walked all the way back to the bench. He wasn't there. He knew, she whispered. He knew they were coming. At lunch, the kids gathered near the window. Whispers flew. "They're gonna catch him." Maybe they already did. "No," Aya said. "He's not stupid. He's scared, but he's smart." Someone asked, "Why do you care so much?" Aya turned, "Because no one waited for me," she said quietly. "Not like that." And then she walked away. That night, the truck left empty. Stood near the gate as its engine rumbled. She watched it turn down the hill, back toward the city. The men never found him, but she hadn't either. She didn't sleep. She just waited for morning. And when it came, she ran not to school, but to the last place she saw him. The broken kindergarten bench. It was empty. No paw prints. No dog. No scarf. She checked every alley, every backyard, every trash bin in the block. The streets felt colder, like something kind had been pushed out. She returned to school, her shoes soaked, her socks muddy. A janitor frowned. "Where have you been?" Aya didn't answer. She sat at her desk, eyes blank. That afternoon, she heard it. Check the back lot, a boy shouted. Someone saw him behind the dumpsters. Aya jumped to her feet and bolted Dot past the swings, past the fence Dot around the storage. Shed Dot, and then she saw them. The dog. Cornered Dot, a boy stood between him and the wall, holding his stick. Get away from him. Aya screamed. The boy turned. I'm just trying to help. Help by leaving him alone. The dog didn't growl, didn't run, just stood still, tail low, ears back. A step forward. It's okay. I'm here. The boy muttered, You're gonna get hurt. No, I'm not. She crouched, hands low. Come on, boy. Let's go home. He took one step, then another, then stopped beside her, pressed his nose to her arm. The boy stared. He listens to you? Aya whispered. He trusts me. That night, she didn't sneak out. She walked out, head high. She had a new plan. No more hiding. No more waiting. She'd tell the truth, every part of it, because he was worth it. And she'd start tomorrow. The next morning, Aya left her house early, her backpack bouncing as she walked fast through the back streets instead of heading straight to school. She was sure of what she saw yesterday, the red scarf, the wagging tail vanishing behind the alley beside the bakery. She had to know where he went. She rounded the corner and stopped. There he was, curled near a stack of old crates. The golden dog lay with his nose on his paws. The red scarf Aya had given him was still around his neck, now dirty and frayed. He didn't notice her at first. His eyes were half shut, his breathing slow, but he looked peaceful. Not the same anxious dog who waited at the gate every day. Then, a creak. Va stepped back quickly, hiding behind a trash bin. The bakery's back door opened. A thin man with white hair and a limp stepped out, carrying a plastic bowl in one hand and a folded cloth in the other. Coda, the old man called gently. Breakfast, old boy. The dog lifted his head, tail thumping against the crate. Aya's eyes widened. Kota? The man crouched, set the bowl down, and watched the dog eat. He didn't pet him, didn't speak more. He just sat beside him, quiet, as if sharing a memory. Aya's heart pounded. She stepped forward. Excuse me, she said softly. The man turned, startled. Coda looked up too, but didn't run. Aya walked slowly toward them, her eyes on the dog. I know him, she said. I mean, I see him at the school gate every day. The man nodded. He's been doing that for a while now. You call him Coda, Aya said. Is that his name? The man smiled, but he was tired. That's what she called him. Aya blinked. Who? The old man didn't answer right away. He stood up, rushed his knees, and looked past her toward the distant school building. You're one of the students, aren't you? He asked. Aya nodded. Yes, my name is Aya. He looked at her for a moment. Then, with a sigh, he pointed to a wooden crate. Sit down. I'll tell you what I can. She obeyed quietly. Coda had finished eating and now lay between them, his ears twitching at the sound of pigeons nearby. She used to come to my bakery every Saturday, the man began. A little girl, always smiling, always dragging her mom behind her. She'd point at the strawberry buns and say, that one, for me, and one for Coda. Aya whispered. She was his. Owner? The man nodded. Yes, her name was Yui. He didn't say anything for a while after that. Aya felt her fingers curl tightly into her skirt. What happened to her? She finally asked. The man closed his eyes. She was just 5. Her mother walked her to kindergarten every morning. Coda would come too. He'd wait outside right by the gate, just like now. He never left until she came out again. Aya's voice cracked. So, he remembers? The man nodded. He remembers everything. But that was years ago, she said. Why is he still coming? The old man looked at her. Because he still hopes, even when the world says it's over. Some hearts don't let go. Aya swallowed hard. What happened to her? There was a long pause. Then the old man said, quietly, one rainy morning, she let go of her mother's hand to run across the street. A delivery truck didn't stop in time. Aya's breath caught in her throat. Koda was right there, he continued. He tried to run to her, but the teachers held him back. After that, he never stopped waiting. Every day, same time, same spot. Aya looked down at the dog. He wasn't looking at them anymore. His eyes were back on the direction of the school. He doesn't even look happy when he's here, she said. It's like he's stuck. The old man nodded. That's grief. That's loyalty. It's a wound that doesn't bleed, but never really heals. Aya knelt beside Koda, her hand trembling as she placed it gently on his fur. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stayed still. I think he's tired, she whispered. The man nodded. He is, but not from waiting, from hoping. Aya stayed silent for a long time. Then she said, they want to catch him. Take him to a shelter. The old man's shoulders stiffened. They tried once before. He ran for 3 days before he came back. He doesn't trust people, except her. And maybe you, she said. The old man looked at her with something new in his eyes. Not surprise, but understanding. Maybe you too, he said. Aya looked at the sky. I wish I could help him. You already are, the man said. Aya stood up. Can I come again? After school? You don't need to ask me, he said. Ask him. She looked down at Koda. Is that okay? She asked gently. He didn't answer, of course, but his tail moved once. Just once. Aya smiled. See you later, Koda, she said, stepping back. Old man called after her. Aya, she turned. Don't try to fix what can't be fixed, he said. Just sit beside it. That's enough. Aya nodded. That evening, she returned. She didn't bring food. She didn't talk much. She just sat near Koda as he lay in the alley. At one point, he inched closer. She didn't move. They watched the sky turn gold together, and as the sun dipped low, she whispered, You're not alone. Koda didn't move, but his eyes, for the first time, blinked slowly, like a thank you. Aya was supposed to be wiping down the trophy shelves, but her eyes kept drifting to the old cabinet in the corner. It hadn't been opened in years. Dust blanketed the wood, and the handles were stiff with rust. But something about it pulled her in. Miss Hoshino said to only clean the desk and the shelf, she reminded herself. But her hands moved anyway. The cabinet groaned as she opened it. Inside were stacks of papers, rolled-up posters, and yearbooks bound in cracked leather. She pulled one out, its edges curled, and flipped it open. Her fingers paused on a page. There it was, a class photo. Aya leaned closer. Rows of smiling children, teachers standing stiff behind them, but it wasn't the faces that froze her. It was the small boy in the front row, a boy in a wheelchair. And beside him, sitting proudly with his tongue out, and red scarf around his neck, was him, Koda. She whispered. It was unmistakable. The same golden coat, the same calm eyes. The boy had his hand resting gently on Koda's head. Aya ran her finger over the name tag beneath the boy's photo. Yuto. Arai. Class 1 BSH. He blinked hard. He was someone's dog. She didn't know how long she stood there before the office door creaked open. Aya? Miss Hoshino stepped in, adjusting her glasses. You were supposed to be done 15 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Aya said quickly, holding up the yearbook. I just found something. Miss Hoshino took the book from her, her face softening as she looked at the picture. Oh, Yuto. You knew him? Aya asked. She nodded slowly. Yes, a sweet boy. Very quiet. He was here a few years ago. And the dog? Koda. He was always by Yuto's side. He even had special permission to sit by the classroom door during lessons. Then, why is Koda alone now? Miss Hoshino closed the book gently. Yuto got very sick. He stopped coming to school. One day, we heard. Her voice trailed off. Kota came back after that. Every day, same spot. Always waiting. Aya's throat tightened. Waiting for someone who'll never come. Miss Hoshino gave a soft nod, then turned away. Come on, dear. Time to go home. That night, Aya couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, mind racing. Everything made sense now. The way Kota sat at the gate. The way he didn't respond to other kids. The way he looked past people, like he was still searching. She whispered into the dark, "You were waiting for your boy." The next morning, before the bell, she sprinted to the schoolyard. But Kota wasn't there. Her stomach dropped. Her shoes skidded across the gravel as she searched the grounds. "Kota!" she called. "Please come back." Nothing. She darted to the alley behind the bakery. The old man was there, tossing crumbs to pigeons. "Kota?" she panted. "Did you see him?" The man shook his head. "Not today." "But he always comes." The man studied her face. "You look like someone who finally understands." Aya sat beside him on the cold step. "I saw a photo in the office." "The boy, Yuto." The old man nodded slowly. That dog loved that boy more than he loved himself. "What happened to Yuto?" she asked gently. The man looked away. "He passed away 2 winters ago. The illness took him faster than anyone expected. But Kota wouldn't accept it." Aya's voice cracked. "He's still waiting. He stayed by Yuto's bed the night he died. When they took the body, Kota followed the ambulance halfway down the street until he couldn't run anymore. After that, he started coming here, to the school, same time every day." Aya clenched her fists. "And no one told us." "Most people forget the ones who leave. But dogs don't." She pressed her forehead to her knees, blinking away the sting in her eyes. "He needs someone," she whispered. "No," the old man said. "He wants someone. He chose you, little girl. You brought him food. You gave him your scarf. You saw him." Aya looked up slowly. "Then why did he run?" "Because he's scared," the man replied. "Because every time he trusts someone, they disappear." Aya stood. "Then I'll show him I'm not going anywhere." She turned and ran. She spent the rest of the day searching every corner of the neighborhood. The park, the hill behind the gym, even the lot near the old train station. Her legs ached. Her throat was dry. Still, she called his name again and again. "Kota, it's me, Aya." Evening fell. Shadows stretched long across the ground. She slumped down on a bench, heart aching. A soft bark echoed. Her eyes snapped up. There, at the edge of the playground, golden fur, tired eyes, the red scarf still tied around his neck. "Kota!" she whispered. He took a step forward, ears twitching. She didn't move, didn't speak again. Just sat. Kota padded forward, slow, careful. He stopped in front of her and lowered his head into her lap. Why broke. Her hands gripped his fur. "I thought I lost you." Kota didn't move, just rested there, still and warm. "I know about Yuto," she whispered. "I know you're still waiting, but maybe we could wait together." Kota lifted his head and looked at her. Then, for the first time, he licked her cheek. Aya laughed through her tears. "Is that a yes?" A light flickered on inside the school building. A janitor peeked out. Aya stood slowly. "Come on, boy. Let's go home." Kota didn't hesitate this time. He walked beside her, step for step. That night, she made a small bed for him in the corner of her room. He sniffed it, circled once, then lay down with a sigh. Aya knelt beside him, placing the old yearbook next to him. "That's you," she said, pointing. "And that's Yuto. I think he'd be happy we found each other." Kota gave a soft grunt. Eyes slowly closing, I whispered, "Good night, Coda." And for the first time in years, he slept like he wasn't waiting anymore. Aya stood outside the office door, the photo trembling in her hands. It wasn't just a guess anymore. She knew it. The golden dog in the picture, calm, loyal, eyes full of light, that was Coda. And the boy beside him, smiling in a wheelchair, was the same boy whose name she'd read below the frame, Yuto. She stepped inside the office. Her homeroom teacher, Miss Reina, sat grading papers with her glasses low on her nose. Aya approached slowly. "Miss Reina?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. The teacher looked up, tired eyes softening at the sight of her. "Yes, Aya. I found this photo. Behind the shelf." Aya handed it to her, careful not to crease it. Miss Reina took the picture, adjusted her glasses, and stared. Seconds passed. Her hands began to tremble. "Where did you find this?" "It was wedged under the old math books," Aya answered. "In the office storage." Miss Reina's fingers brushed the edges like they were made of glass. Then, without a word, she slowly sat down. Her face had turned pale. "That's Yuto," she finally whispered. "And that dog?" Aya nodded, eyes already full. "It's him. It's Coda." The room fell silent, heavy with memories. Aya didn't even know. Miss Reina blinked fast but couldn't stop the tears. One slipped down her cheek and dropped onto the photo. "I thought he'd be gone by now," she murmured. "I thought maybe, after all this time." Aya stepped closer. "He waits by the gate, every day, like he's still waiting for him." Miss Reina pressed the photo to her chest. "Yuto was my student 3 years ago. Always came early. Always left last. And that dog." She smiled softly through tears. "That dog never left his side." "What happened to him?" Aya asked gently. The teacher didn't answer right away. She took a deep breath, as if she was reaching into a memory she hadn't touched in years. Yuto had a condition. His muscles were weak. Too weak for most things. He couldn't run or climb stairs like the others. But he smiled more than any kid I ever knew. And Coda, he was more than just a pet. He was Yuto's legs, his protector. Aya listened, her throat tight. One day, Miss Reina continued. During art class, Yuto didn't show up. His mother called, said he had a fever. No one thought it was serious, but the next day, he was gone. She wiped her eyes, voice cracking. Just like that. Aya lowered her head. Coda still waits. The teacher nodded slowly, a tear clinging to her chin. I remember when Yuto first brought him. The dog sat outside the door like he knew he wasn't allowed in, but his eyes followed every sound Yuto made. He was so gentle. We gave him a red scarf during winter. Aya's heart caught in her chest. I gave him one too, when it rained. Miss Reina smiled faintly. He remembers then. The room stayed quiet. Just two people, one young, one older, sharing the weight of an invisible boy and a very real dog who still waited for him. Then, I asked, why doesn't anyone do anything? Coda's out there every day, alone. Because people forget, Miss Reina said softly. They get busy. They think dogs move on like people do. But Coda didn't, Aya whispered, double quotes. No, he didn't. The photo lay between them now. Two souls captured in a frozen moment, one gone, the other waiting still. I tried to stop them, Aya said. When they wanted to take him, I begged. Miss Reina looked at her with warmth and sorrow. You did more than most ever would. He's not just a dog, Aya said, stronger now. He's holding on to something the rest of us let go of too fast. Miss Reina stood and walked to the window. From that angle, they couldn't see the gate. But they both knew he was there, waiting. I'll talk to the staff, she said finally. Tell them to leave him be. Maybe some stories don't need to end. Aya nodded. He deserves that. The bell rang outside. Children's voices filled the courtyard, laughter echoing off the walls. Life moved on like it always did, but for a moment longer, time stood still inside that office dot as Aya turned to. "Leave," Miss Reyna called softly. "Aya?" She looked back. "Thank you for remembering him, for seeing Coda." Aya smiled, though her eyes still shimmered. Someone had to. She walked out into the hallway, feeling like her heart had grown. Heavier but warmer, too. That afternoon, she sat on the steps near the gate. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and orange. And there he was, Coda, lying in his usual spot, eyes watching the school door. Aya didn't speak. She just sat with him, their shadows stretching long. Coda blinked slowly, lifting his head for a moment. His red scarf faded, now ruffled in the wind. "I know why you wait," Aya whispered. "And I'm here with you." Coda closed his eyes, breathing soft, steady as the sky turned to dusk. The last of the children went home. Lights flicked on inside the classrooms. But outside, by the gate, a girl and a dog remained sharing silence, sorrow, and something that felt a lot like love. The morning air was cool, crisp, and hushed. A thin mist clung to the playground fence as Aya arrived early, her shoes crunching softly on the gravel path. She clutched a slice of bread in one hand and her sketchbook in the other. But today, her hands weren't shaking. Today, she felt ready. Kota was already there. He sat still, just like always, by the school gate. His golden fur was streaked with dust, and the red scarf Aya had given him, though faded, still hung gently around his neck. He didn't look up at first. His eyes stayed on the doors of the school, waiting, just waiting. Aya approached slowly, carefully lowering herself to the ground beside him. "Hey," she said softly, placing the bread beside her knee. "I don't have much time before the bell, but I wanted to see you. I wanted to be here." Coda didn't move, but he didn't leave either. Aya opened her sketchbook and began drawing. Him again, his ears, the curve of his back, the sadness in his eyes. She whispered, "I found out your name, Coda. It suits you. I met the man who feeds you sometimes, and I saw a photo of you with Yudo." At that name, Coda's ear twitched. Just a little. Aya smiled faintly. "He must have been so kind. You loved him, didn't you?" The wind stirred, lifting a few strands of her hair. She reached out her hand and placed it gently on the ground. "Between them, you don't have to come close. I just wanted you to know I see you. I know you're not just waiting for food." Coda turned his head just slightly. He looked at her, really looked. And then, without a sound, he leaned forward and pressed the side of his head lightly into her hand. Aya froze. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught, then dashed slowly. Slowly his tail gave a single soft wag. She whispered, "It's okay. You're not alone." For a long time, neither of them moved. Coda remained close, his head resting gently against Aya's palm. Her fingers trembled as they brushed his fur, warm, coarse, and real. She had waited for this moment. But now that it was here, it felt bigger than anything she could draw. Bigger than any story. The school bell rang in the distance. Students began pouring into the yard. Some glanced at the girl sitting on the ground. A few even stared. But no one spoke. Aya stood slowly, not wanting to startle him. "I have to go now," she said, "but I'll come back." Coda stayed seated. Aya hesitated, then stepped closer and whispered, "He knows you're still waiting. That's why you're still here." She turned and walked toward the school, her scarf flapping behind her. As she reached the door, she looked back. Coda was still watching the entrance, but this time, his eyes flicked toward her too. That afternoon, Aya went straight to the library. She opened every folder in the archives she could find, searching for Yuto's name. There wasn't much, just a student record, a short note. Yuto Tanaka, transferred from a special school. Loved art and dogs. And then, at the bottom of the file, a yellowing flyer. Yuto's Memorial Fund, honoring a gentle spirit. Aya stared at it for a long time. At lunch, she slipped away again and returned to the gate. Kota was gone. But the piece of bread was gone too. The next morning, she waited again. Earlier this time. And there he was, not just sitting now, waiting in the exact same spot, but when he saw her, he stood up. Not fully, not excited, but ready. Ay smiled. Hi, Kota, I missed you. He didn't wag this time, but he didn't leave either. As the week passed, the two of them fell into a quiet rhythm. Aya came early every morning and sat beside him, reading aloud from her school books or just whispering whatever thoughts drifted through her mind. Kota listened in silence, but the bond was clear now. Teachers began to notice. One morning, Aya's homeroom teacher stood quietly by the window, watching the girl crouched beside the golden dog. She didn't say a word. But when another teacher muttered something about calling the shelter again, she shook her head. Give it time, she said, softly. Let them be. One rainy day, Kota followed Aya part of the way home. Not close enough to walk beside her, but close enough to be seen. He stopped at the edge of the corner, just before the bakery, and sat down. When Aya turned, he was sitting like a statue, watching. Do you want to come? She asked, hopeful. He didn't move. She nodded. That's okay. I understand. The old man from the alley watched too, from behind his crates. He trusts you now, he said as she passed. It's been a long time since he's walked that far. Aya tilted her head. How long has he been waiting? The man gave a heavy sigh. 2 years, maybe more. Ever since Yuto. He paused. Ever since the ambulance came. Aya bit her lip. So he saw everything? The old man nodded. He wouldn't leave the gate for days after, no matter what. Aya felt her throat tighten. And now? The man looked at her gently. Now, he comes because you do. That weekend, Aya drew a new picture. It was her and Kota side by side beneath the school gate. She placed it gently in a plastic sheet and slipped it under the garden rock beside him Monday morning. I made this for you, she said. I don't know if you care about pictures, but I wanted you to have it. Kota sniffed it, then looked up at her with those same soft eyes. No tail wag. Just understanding. By the end of the week, something incredible happened. As Aya sat beside him. A few younger kids stopped on their way into school. One girl asked, Can I pet him too? Aya hesitated. But then Kota surprised her. He didn't flinch. Be slow, Aya whispered. He's gentle, just scared. The girl reached out, touched his fur, and gasped. He's so soft. More students began coming over. Just a few, just watching. No one was loud. No one teased. One boy whispered, He used to belong to someone. Who went here? Aya nodded. He still does. That afternoon, Kota didn't wait at the gate. He walked with her to the crosswalk, stopped, then turned and trotted back. It was his way of saying goodbye. That night, Aya drew again. And this time, her hands didn't shake. She titled the drawing, The Day He Wagged His Tail. She whispered, Before bed, You're still waiting, Kota. But now you're not waiting alone. That evening, Aya sat with her mother at the dinner table, poking at her rice with her chopsticks. Her mother glanced up. You've been quiet lately. Aya looked down. It's about the dog. Kota. Her mother tilted her head. The one from the school gate? Aya nodded. He waits there every day. I found out he belonged to a boy named Yuto. He passed away 2 years ago. Her mother's face softened. And he still waits? Aya's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. For a while, the only sound was the ticking clock. Maybe, her mother said gently. He's not just waiting for Yuto anymore. Aya looked up, confused. What do you mean? Sometimes, her mother replied, when we love someone and we lose them, we find someone else to love in a new way. Maybe that's what he sees in you. Aya didn't know what to say, but those words stayed with her. The next day, she found Kota curled behind the bakery again. She sat beside him in silence. Maybe we're both healing, little by little. That night, she wrote a letter in her notebook. It wasn't to anyone alive. It was addressed to Yuto. I met Kota, it said. He still loves you. He still waits. But now, he lets me sit with him. And sometimes, he wags his tail. Just once. I think you'd be proud. She folded the letter and tucked it inside her sketchbook. The next morning, she read it aloud beside the gate. Kota didn't move much, but when she finished, he gave the softest sigh. And then again his tail wagged. Just once. But this time, it felt like the beginning of something new. Aya couldn't stop thinking about Kota's tail. It hadn't wagged much, just once. But in that tiny flick, she saw something. A whisper of trust, a quiet memory. For weeks, the dog had only sat in silence, never moving, never reacting. And now he moved. Something was shifting. She felt it in her chest. Maybe he wasn't just surviving. Maybe he was beginning to feel again. That one wag stayed with her the entire day, through math problems, through lunch, even as the sky turned orange. And by the time school ended, she found herself looking for more signs. As the hallway cleared, and students rushed out. The old janitor stood by the lockers, quietly sweeping. Aya almost passed him, but he called out, his voice raspy. Aya, she paused. The man hardly ever spoke, let alone used her name. She turned, and he gestured her over. His hand trembled slightly, and his eyes looked distant, like they were remembering something he hadn't said aloud in years. He reached into the cart beside him and pulled out a weathered, dust-covered envelope. This belonged to Yuto. I found it cleaning out the old lockers. His voice shook slightly, like it hadn't been used in a long time. Aya stepped closer, heart beating faster. Something told her this moment mattered, more than she could yet understand. She reached out, unsure. The envelope was yellowed at. The edges, the seal barely holding together. Aya held it gently, like it might break. The janitor's hand stayed out for a second longer before pulling away. He looked down, his broom forgotten. I didn't know if anyone would care, he mumbled. But you should have it. Aya nodded, not trusting her voice. She clutched the envelope close and walked slowly out of the hallway, her fingers tracing the edges, feeling each crease. Her heart pounded with something she couldn't name yet, something close to fear and hope tangled together. Outside, the late afternoon air was cool, quiet. She sat down on the bench near the gate, the same one Kota always curled beside. He wasn't there now, but his scent still lingered warm, familiar. She ran her finger under the seal, opening the envelope slowly. It made a soft sound, like paper sighing after a long sleep. Inside were sheets of thick paper, folded unevenly. She pulled them out one by one, her breath catching as she unfolded the first page. Crayon marks, wobbly lines. It was a drawing. A boy with messy hair, sitting in a wheelchair. Next to the boy was a golden dog. His tongue stuck out. His tail was wagging. The picture was clumsy but full of heart. Aya smiled through tears. She unfolded another, and another. Each one was nearly the same. A boy and his dog, always near the school gate, always together. Sometimes there were clouds or flowers or smiling suns, but the boy and Kota never changed. It was like Yuto had drawn their bond over and over, trying to make it stay, trying to hold it still in time. The pictures felt alive, like a heartbeat caught in ink. At the very bottom of the envelope, stuck between the folds, was something smaller. A tiny square of paper, folded again and again. Her hand shook as she opened it. The edges were soft, like fingers had held it many times. Inside were only a few words, written in blue ink. But they hit harder than anything she'd ever read. "If I don't wake up, tell Koda I'll still be waiting too." Her breath hitched. She read it again and again. Each time, it sank deeper into her chest, like a stone dropping into a well-A. Waya sat frozen. Her fingers curled tightly around. The note. Suddenly, the months made sense. The gate, the waiting, the way Koda never left, never looked at anyone else. He hadn't been abandoned. He was waiting for someone who couldn't come back. "Oh, Koda," she whispered. "You weren't lost. You were loyal." She looked up, eyes burning. Her throat ached. She wiped her cheek roughly with her sleeve. She'd thought she was helping him heal, but maybe he had never broken. He was just holding on for a boy who had drawn him into forever. She wanted to cry, scream, and hug the dog all at once. The weight of the truth settled over her like a blanket. It was heavy, but it was real. She wasn't just a girl feeding a stray. She was part of a promise. She looked up and saw Koda across the street. He was lying down, head low, watching her. Their eyes met. He didn't move, didn't blink. But something passed between them, a kind of understanding. Aya stood and walked over slowly. She knelt a few feet away, the note still in her hand. "I found it," she said softly. "I found what he left for you." She held out the paper, not expecting him to take it, but just wanting him to know. Koda didn't move, but his ears twitched, and he made a small sound in his throat. A sound like breath remembering a name. They sat together, quiet. The late sun stretched shadows long across the pavement. Koda didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just watched her, and she watched him. Aya placed the note on the ground, gently, folding it back into the square shape it had arrived in. "You're not waiting alone anymore," she whispered. "I'll wait with you." There was no need for anything else. Just the wind. Just the memory. Just two souls sitting beside something they both understood, now love that outlives the body. For the first time since she'd known him, Koda stood up and walked over to her. Not rushed, not nervous, just sure. He nudged her elbow gently with his nose. Aya held her breath and slowly reached up. He didn't flinch. She placed her palm on his head, and this time he stayed. She could feel the warmth under his fur, feel the quiet tremble in his breath. "He loved you so much," she said. Koda closed his eyes, and for one long second, he leaned into her hand like he remembered that love too. They returned to the gate together. Aya sat on the step. Koda curled beside her, closer than he'd ever allowed. She told him about Yuto, what she'd learned, what she'd seen in the pictures. He didn't speak, of course, but he listened, in his way. When the bell rang and children ran past, some stopped and stared. The stray dog wasn't a mystery anymore. He was a guardian, a keeper of memories, a living piece of a boy who had once filled the hallways with light. And though few knew the full story, some sensed the weight of his silence. As the stars began to rise, Aya knew this chapter wasn't over. It had only just begun. In her heart, she knew she'd tell others. Someday. Maybe not today, but someday soon. Before she left that day, Aya looked down at Koda and smiled. "We'll remember him together," she said. "I promise." Koda lifted his head and looked at her, eyes soft. Then he lay it back down and closed them. That night, she placed the drawings and the note in a small wooden box beside her bed. A boy, a dog, a promise. And in the dark, she whispered a name into her pillow and felt it echo gently, as if somewhere, just somewhere, someone had whispered it back. The next morning started like every other. Aya stood at the gate, lunchbox clutched in her hand, heart thudding. But this time, she wasn't alone. One by one, students began to appear. Some came in pairs, some shyly walked up alone. No one said anything at first. They just stood, eyes scanning the empty sidewalk. Awaya whispered, "He always comes right before the bell." A boy from her class asked, "Is it true?" "That dog, he waited for a boy who never came back." Aya nodded. His name was Yuto. They were best friends. Whispers rippled through the small crowd. Then, as if called by their thoughts, the soft sound of paws on gravel echoed down the street. Kota. He trotted slowly toward them, his golden fur dusted with bits of dry leaves. His red scarf, though faded, still clung around his neck. He didn't bark. He didn't wag. He simply moved. Through the students, eyes calm, posture quiet, Aya stepped forward and crouched. "Good morning, Kota." He brushed his shoulder against her knees before sitting in his usual spot right beside the gate. Always the same place. Always facing the same direction. A teacher stepped outside, stunned by the group. "What's going on here?" Another student replied softly, "We came to see Kota." The teacher's voice caught. "You know his name?" Aya stood up. "Yuto named him. There's a picture of them in the office." The teacher's gaze drifted to the gate. Her eyes shimmered. All these months, he was never just loitering. He was waiting, Aya said, just like he promised. The silence that followed was heavy but warm. No one moved. Even the teachers nearby stood still, as if time had paused. Kota blinked slowly and looked around at the faces. For a second, his tail moved. Just once. A soft wag. But enough. One girl whispered, "Does he think one of us is Yuto?" Aya shook her head. "No, I think he knows Yuto's gone. But he also knows he's not forgotten." Another teacher approached, with a paper cup of warm milk. "He never let anyone touch him," she said quietly, "except her." She knelt and set the cup down near him. Kota sniffed it, then looked up. Slowly, carefully, he took a small sip. "He trusts us, someone," whispered. Awaya crouched beside him again. "It's okay, Kota. They know now. You don't have to be alone." For the first time, he leaned his head into her side and closed his eyes. The students didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just stood in respectful silence, watching a promise fulfilled in its own quiet way. A younger boy looked up at his teacher and asked, "Why would a dog wait that long?" The teacher knelt beside him. "Because love like that doesn't fade. It remembers." From that day on, Kota became part of the school. No one chased him away. He had a place near the entrance, a soft blanket laid out by the janitor, a bowl of fresh water, and morning greetings from every child. He still sat in his usual spot, still watched the doors, still waited. But now, he waited with all of them. By the next week, whispers turned into questions, and questions turned into calls. A local reporter showed up outside the school gate with a camera crew. They had heard the story, a loyal stray who returned every day to the place. He last saw his boy. Kota sat quietly by the gate as always. The camera light blinked red. The crew stayed a few feet away, unsure if they should approach. But he didn't growl. He didn't flinch. He just waited. Inside the classroom, Aya's heart beat fast. She peeked through the window. The reporter was talking to the principal now, and then to a teacher. She could read their lips. The same story being told again, about Yuto, about the photos, the scarf, the weight. Then the door creaked open. A voice asked, "Is there a girl named Aya here?" She stood slowly. The teacher nodded. Aya walked out, notebook clutched to her chest. The reporter smiled gently. "You were the one who first noticed him, right?" "I guess," she said. Her voice felt small. "Can you tell me what made you care?" The reporter asked. Awaya looked at Koda through the gate. His eyes were on her, still and warm. He wasn't just sitting. He was remembering, and no one else saw it. The camera recorded everything. That night, the clip aired on local television. Then it got shared. Then it spread. By morning, people were standing outside the school with flowers. One woman placed a blanket beside the bench. A man brought dog treats and left them gently by the fence. A little girl drew a picture and taped it to the gate. But Koda didn't move for any of them. He didn't sniff the toys. He didn't wag for the attention. He just kept facing the school, ears alert, eyes calm. Awaya sat down next to him after class. The crowd watched from a respectful distance. She leaned in close and whispered, "Good morning, boy." Only then did Koda shift his weight. His ears turned toward her voice. His tail moved, just a little. "He only moves when she talks," someone said. A teacher nodded. "It's like she's the only one who speaks his language." Days passed. The story reached national news. Donations came in, enough to fix the kindergarten fence, replace broken benches, and even sponsor books in Yuto's name. A small plaque was placed under the bench. It read, "For Yuto, the boy who was never alone." Still, Koda never moved for the newsvans or the photographers. He didn't care for the attention. He cared for the wait, and every day, rain or shine, Aya came to sit beside him. "You're famous now, Koda," she smiled one afternoon. "But I know what you're really here for." He blinked slowly. His head rested gently on her shoe. Even when the crowd faded, even when the world moved on, the gate still had two shadows in the morning, a girl and a dog, side by side. Always waiting, always remembering. A week later, a news van returned with a bigger camera crew. This time, they brought a reporter from Tokyo. She wore a bright blazer and held a microphone with a logo. Aya didn't recognize Dada. Waya watched from behind the curtains. Koda was still there, same spot, same quiet eyes. The woman asked the principal for an interview. "I just want to understand what keeps him here," she said. The principal sighed. "It's not something you explain. You feel it." Later that day, the reporter approached Aya again. "What do you think Koda is waiting for?" Aya thought for a long time. "Some people think love ends when someone dies," she said. But Koda didn't believe that. "He's still holding on. Maybe he's teaching us how to remember." The next day, the story was everywhere. TV, phones, radios. People sent letters to the school. Some wrote poems. Some shared photos of their own dogs. One card said, "Thank you for showing us what loyalty looks like." But with the growing attention came something else. Pressure. One council member suggested putting Koda in a shelter for his own safety. "Too many people are crowding now," he said. "We can't risk something going wrong." Aya stood up at the next school meeting. Her voice was louder this time. "He's not hurting anyone. He's reminding us what love means. Please, don't take that away." The room fell quiet. The mayor folded his hands and said, "We'll discuss it again next week. For now, let him be." That night, Aya knelt by Koda again. She brushed his fur and whispered, "I told him you deserved to stay." Koda lifted his head and nudged her arm. The moonlight spilled across the schoolyard. A light wind tugged at the red scarf still tied around his neck. The only sound was the soft exhale from Koda's nose as he rested beside the bench. "Good night, Koda," Aya said. "I'll see you in the morning." Koda didn't show up for morning roll call. Aya waited beside the school gate, clutching her lunchbox with one hand and hope with the other. But the red scarf she once tied around his neck didn't flicker in the wind. The spot where he always sat, empty. She scanned the street. Nothing. The bell rang. Children ran past. But Aya didn't move. At lunch, She sat on the steps and searched again. Still no Kota. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She slipped past the janitor and down the walkway behind the school, past the trees, past the flower beds, until she reached the bench, and there he was. Kota. Curled beside the "Welcome, kindergartners" sign. He looked thinner, tired, but his eyes opened when he heard her steps. Awaya knelt beside him. "I looked for you all day," she whispered. Kota didn't move, but his gaze followed her hands as she placed her sandwich beside him. "You came back here," she said gently. "Just like before." The wind stirred the leaves. Streetlights blinked on across the town. Kota's ears flicked, but he didn't lift his head. Awaya sat on the bench quietly, watching him breathe. "Is this where you used to sit with Yudo?" she asked. Kota blinked slowly, as if remembering. Aya's throat tightened. "Are you saying goodbye?" For a moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, as if his bones ached, Kota lifted his head and nudged her hand with his nose. Her eyes welled up. "You remember me now, don't you?" Kota's tail moved once, a tiny wag. Then still. She leaned forward, touching her forehead to his. "You waited for him every day," she whispered. "Even when no one else did. Even when they forgot." Kota closed his eyes. Awaya looked up at the darkening sky. Stars were beginning to appear, faint and trembling. "I'll stay with you tonight," she said. "You don't have to be alone." She tucked her knees up and wrapped her arms around herself. The bench creaked as she shifted. Kota shifted closer. No cars passed. No sounds of children laughing. Just the soft breeze and a girl with a dog whose heart had waited longer than most people could ever understand. She reached into her bag and pulled out the crumpled letter, the one with Yuto's handwriting. "If I don't wake up," she read aloud, "tell Kota I'll still be waiting too." She folded the paper slowly. Kota stirred. His paw moved, just a little, then stopped. Awaya placed the note beside him. "You did what he asked," she said. "You waited." Minutes passed. Then an hour. Her eyes fluttered, but she fought sleep. Kota's chest rose and fell. Slow, steady, quiet. A distant owl hooted. Somewhere in the town, a light clicked off. Aya stroked the fur behind his ear. "It's okay," she whispered. "You can rest now." Kota gave a soft sound, half sigh, half breath, and leaned against her leg. She held him, gently, her hand rising and falling with his breath. And they stayed like that. The girl, the dog, the bench, and the ghost of a promise kept. Sun peeked over the rooftops, soft and slow. But something felt off. Awaya was the first to arrive at the gate that morning. Her bag hung loosely from her shoulder. Her steps were quiet, almost careful, like she didn't want to wake anything. But when she reached the bench near the kindergarten sign, her breath caught. Kota was there, curled up like always, peaceful, too peaceful. She dropped her bag. "Kota," she whispered. He didn't lift his head, didn't wag his tail. She knelt beside him, pressing a hand gently to his fur. It was still warm, still soft. But something inside her already knew. His chest didn't rise. His ears didn't twitch. He was still, like a stone warmed by the last sun of the day. Aya's voice trembled. "Kota, wake up. You stayed all night. You don't have to wait anymore." Bird called in the distance. Somewhere down the path, the school bell hadn't rung yet. The village was just beginning to stir. But for her, time had stopped. The teacher with the kind eyes came running. She had seen Aya's bag alone and got worried. "Aya?" She called out. Awaya didn't turn. She just kept whispering. "It's okay. You waited long enough." The teacher paused when she saw them. One hand rose to her mouth. Then, slowly, she stepped forward and lowered herself beside the girl. She laid her hand on Koda's side, just like Aya had. "Oh," she breathed. "He's gone." Aya didn't cry at first. Not really. It was too quiet inside her. Too full. She had no room left for more sadness. She had used all her tears over the weeks. She had nothing left, only silence. But when more students arrived, when the whispers started, when the teachers gently gathered around, something in her finally cracked. She leaned down and hugged Koda. "You waited for Yuta," she said, her voice breaking. "And I gotta know you because of that." A small boy in the back said, "Is the dog dead?" One of the older students answered softly, "He's sleeping. He's with his boy now." And somehow, that was enough. The school didn't start right away that day. The principal called an assembly on the front steps. Teachers and students stood. In a wide circle, quiet. No one told jokes. No one took photos. Instead, the janitor, the one who had known Koda before anyone else, came forward with something in his hand. It was a wooden frame. Inside it, a picture of Yuto smiling in his wheelchair. Beside him sat Koda, younger, brighter, eyes wide with trust. "I thought maybe," the janitor said, his voice rough, "we could hang this for both of them." The principal nodded. Above the gate, the entire school helped. Nails, a ladder, tape. Even kids who never liked dogs held onto corners of cloth to clean the frame. They wanted to do something. Anything. Aya watched from the side, still sitting by Koda's body. She didn't want to leave him yet. The mayor stopped by around noon. He removed his hat when he saw the scene. He had never said much about the dog before, but now his eyes were red. "We'll bury him here," he said, near the bench. Aya stood then. "Can I help dig?" He nodded. Of course. So they dug. Not just adults, but children too. Hands small but strong. The earth gave way, soft and damp. A resting place beneath the same tree where Koda had waited all those months. They wrapped him in a red scarf, the same one Aya had given him during the rain. Before they covered him, she kissed his head. "You kept your promise," she said. "You stayed." The last handful of soil fell. And that was it. That night, Aya didn't sleep well. Her room felt too quiet. The sky outside was too bright with stars. She missed the sound of his tail hitting the ground when she walked near. She missed the silent guard at the gate. The next morning, she still walked to school. She didn't carry snacks. She didn't look for him. But when she reached the gate and saw the portrait hanging above it, something inside her felt warm again. Underneath the picture, a small plaque had been placed. It read, "Forever waiting, forever friends." Kids gathered around it each morning. Some left flowers. Some left drawings. One child tied a tiny toy to the bench leg. The bench never looked empty after that. Aya started writing. Small notes, letters. She left one each Friday under the bench. She knew no one would read them, but she still wrote, "I had a math test. Today," one said, "I think I passed." Another read, "I saw a golden retriever at the park. He looked like you." But the one that meant the most was the one she wrote 3 weeks later. "Thank you," it said, "for teaching me what loyalty means." The village never forgot. The news stopped coming. The cameras left. But the people remembered. And every now and then, when someone new came to the school and asked about the dog in the photo, a teacher or a student would smile and say, "That's Koda. He waited, and we waited with him." And that was the end of his story. But it was also the start of something bigger, a reminder that love doesn't leave when life does. Sometimes it just waits at the gate. The next morning, the sky was bright but gentle, the kind of morning that feels like it's holding its breath. Aya walked alone to the school. Her steps were slower than usual, and her hands clutched something tightly, a bundle of fresh red. Scarves. When she reached the kindergarten tree, the one where Coda had been laid to rest, she knelt down in front of it. The red scarf she had tied the day before fluttered lightly in the breeze. She untied it gently, folded it, and placed it in her lap. Then, one by one, she began tying the new scarves around the branches. Each one was different. Some bright, some faded, some knitted by hand. She tied them not just to remember Coda, but to make sure he was never alone. That tree, it wouldn't just be a tree anymore. A second grader approached slowly. "Can I help?" Aya looked up. She nodded. "Here, tie this one high." One scarf. At a time, more children joined in. No one needed instructions. No one needed to ask what it meant. A girl whispered, "For Coda." A boy added, "So he sees us." By mid-morning, the tree was wrapped in waves of red, like ribbons of memory swaying. In the wind, the bench beneath remained empty, and somehow, that emptiness made it feel fuller than ever before. A teacher brought out a small wooden sign. She placed it at the base of the tree. It read, "The Red Scarf Tree, in honor of loyalty and laughter." Librarians stepped forward and placed a single book beneath it, a photo album with a hand-drawn cover. Inside were the pictures Aya had gathered. Coda by the gate, Coda in the rain, Coda sleeping by the bench. And on the last page, a picture of Yuto, smiling, arms around Coda's neck. As the school bell rang, the children didn't rush to class. They stayed. One by one, they placed something by the tree. A drawing, a note, a toy, a flower. I stood quietly, watching each of them. She remembered the first time she saw him. Just a golden dog sitting by the school gate, eyes searching, never barking, never begging. Just waiting. And now, even though he was gone, it felt like he was everywhere. At lunch, the principal made an announcement. "We often teach lessons here at school, but this year, a stray dog named Coda taught us more than any textbook could. He taught us patience, loyalty, and the kind of love that stays, even when the world moves on." There were tears in many eyes. Even the teacher who once said, "It's just a dog," had to pause and wipe his glasses. After school, Aya returned to the tree. She sat on the bench beside it, knees pulled up to her chest, scarf around her neck. Not the red one this time, but a blue one Yuto once wore in a photo. She looked up through the branches. Dozens of red scarves danced above her, whispering softly in the wind. She spoke, not loudly, not to be heard, but just to say it out loud. "You didn't wait for nothing, Coda. You waited for all of us to remember." A breeze passed through the tree. One scarf slipped free from a branch and drifted down. Aya caught it in her hands, smiling softly. Behind her, the old janitor approached with his broom. "This place feels different now," he said. Aya looked back. "It feels like him." The janitor nodded. "Maybe it always will." As the sky darkened, more families came. Some with flowers, some with candles, some just with silence. By sunset, the red scarf tree was no longer just a place of memory. It had become a place of hope, a reminder that even the quietest love, the kind that never asks for anything, can leave the loudest echo. And beneath that tree, with red scarves above and stories shared below, Coda's spirit lived on, not just as a dog who waited, but as a friend who never let go. Years passed. The school gate aged. The trees grew taller. Some teachers retired. New students arrived with backpacks too big for their shoulders and questions too large for their hearts. But the red scarf tree remained, and beside it stood a bronze statue, a golden dog. Seated straight, eyes fixed ahead, a red scarf sculpted around its neck. One spring morning, a small boy with round glasses tugged at his mother's hand as they walked past the school. He pointed at the statue. "Mama," he asked, "why is that dog sitting there?" The mother paused. She looked at the sculpture, her eyes softening. "That's Coda," she said. He waited for his boy. Day after day, rain or shine, no matter how long it took. The boy blinked. But did the boy come back? The mother knelt down beside him. "No, sweetie." The boy couldn't. But Coda didn't know that. Or maybe he did. And he waited anyway. The child frowned. Wasn't he sad? She smiled. Yes, but he was also brave. Because real love doesn't always get an ending. Sometimes it just stays. The boy reached out and touched the statue's paw dot inside the school. In the main hallway, a framed photo still hung. Yuto in his wheelchair, arms around Coda. Beneath it were the words, "Forever waiting." Forever friends. Some students stopped to look. Others passed it without noticing. But the janitor, now gray and slower in step, still paused every morning to wipe the frame with care. Outside, the scarf tree fluttered with new ribbons. The old ones were taken down each season, but more always appeared. Red. Always red. A no longer attended the school. She had grown, moved on. But she visited often, quietly, without making a scene. On one visit, she brought her own daughter. Little girl tugged on her sleeve. "Mama, is this where he waited?" Aya nodded. "Right by that gate. Every morning." "Why?" Aya crouched and rested her hand on the grass. "Because he loved someone who couldn't come back. But he believed. That waiting still mattered." The little girl's brow furrowed. "But didn't it hurt?" Aya looked at her daughter and whispered, "Yes, but he turned pain into something beautiful." They sat for a while in silence. Children still left notes by the statue. Crayon drawings. Stuffed animals. Letters with crook spelling. "I love you, Coda. You're the bravest dog ever. I wish I had a friend like you." No one had to explain the story anymore. It lived in the walls, in the tree, in the way teachers spoke a little more gently and kids looked out the windows just a little longer. Years later, the small boy with the round glasses would grow up and become a teacher himself at the same school. He'd walk past the statue every morning. And on some days, he'd pause to whisper, "I didn't forget." Because Coda didn't teach them just to love. He taught them to remember, to believe, to wait. Not for someone to return, but because love itself was worth waiting for. And sometimes, that was enough. Sometimes. That was everything. If this story resonated with you, hit like, spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from.